Welcome back everyone, this is GTA Failer and this is the last video before we start doing story missions. I can't believe this day has finally arrived, but the next video will be our first story mission in the game since the very first video in this series. So I thought this would be a good time for us to take a quick look at the mission tree, and we'll see which missions unlock other missions, and we'll also see that if you aren't careful about the order in which you do the missions, you can easily lock yourself out from actually attempting certain missions, and therefore lock yourself out from getting 100% in-game completion. And then finally, we'll see that there's a bug in the game actually allowing you to get 100% in-game completion, even if you lock yourself out of certain missions. So the website I'm showing you here is going to be linked in the video description below, but here is the mission tree. So in the very first video of this series, we tackled Introduction, which was just watching the opening cutscene. Then we did Give Me Liberty, where we took 8-Ball to a couple of destinations. And then we did Luigi's Girls, where we picked up Misty over at the hospital and brought her back to Luigi's. All three of these things count as a single mission in the in-game stats and in terms of in-game completion percentage. And we haven't done any story missions since then, but you can see that the only things available to us are the missions in the Luigi chain. And so this next mission here is the next one we'll do in this video series. Drive Misty for me is the next Luigi mission, and then the horizontal lines here indicate that once you finish Drive Misty for me, you have unlocked a couple of chains of missions that are not available to us at the moment. So Drive Misty for me unlocks Joey's chains of missions and also Marty Chonks' chain of missions, and he is his missions start over at the payphone right near Joey's auto garage. Luigi has 2 more missions that you can do. They've got ones next to them. We'll talk about what that means. Joey's got a whole string of missions here. Marty Chunks has 4 missions. Once you complete Joey's 3rd mission, Van Heist, that opens up another set of telephone missions given to you by El Burro. And then Joey's got these missions down here. These ones have ones. We'll talk about those. But once you finish Joey's Cipriani's chauffeur, that opens Tony's missions. And Tony's got 5 missions here, and then we got kind of the complicated horizontal lines here. So what's going on? Well, let's see. Once you complete Salvatore called a meeting, then that unlocks Chaperone, which unlocks Cutting the Grass. But you cannot do Bomb to Base Act 1 until you have finished Cutting the Grass and also Blowfish. So the only way to unlock this mission is to finish Tony's chain. That might have been off screen. You got to finish Tony's chain, and you have to do the first 2 missions in Salvatore's chain before you get the Bomb to Base Act 1 Salvatore mission. Okay, and then finally, Last Requests is the last mission in Salvatore's chain. It's the last mission on Portland Island, and it's got a 1 next to it. So what does that mean? Well, spoilers, in Last Requests, we are going to turn away from we're going to double cross the Mafia and start working for Asuka. And so as soon as you do Last Request, the Mafia doesn't like you anymore because you have double-crossed them. And what that means is that the Mafia will no longer give you missions once you complete Last Request. And so let's go back up to all the missions that had 1s next to them. So here's Luigi's chain. And in order to access Salvatore's chain, you got to progress down this tree here. But the only thing you need to do for Luigi to open up Joey is Drive Misty for me. And so these 2 missions here are kind of dangling off of the tree, and you don't actually have to do them to progress the story, right? You could just finish Drive Misty for me and then begin Joey's missions and work your way down the tree. And so before you do Last Requests, which is right here when the Mafia gets mad at you, you need to make sure that you do Pump Action Pimp and the Fuzzball because they will both be locked out once you complete Last Requests. Similarly, if you work your way down the Joey chain, in order to unlock Tony, you need to do Joey's mission, Cipriani's chauffeur, but then you've got these 2 dangling missions here, Dead Skunk in the Trunk and the Getaway, which will also become closed to you once you finish Last Requests. So before you do Last Requests, you want to complete these 2 missions if you want to get 100% in the game. Okay, so be very careful as you work through Portland. You don't want to get locked out of those 4 missions up above. Okay, so then completing Last Requests unlocks Staunton Island officially, and then you start working for Asuka. And once you finish Sayonara Salvatore, well, you could keep doing Asuka missions, or you could do the King Courtney missions, another set of 4 phone missions. And once you complete Asuka's Under Surveillance, that opens Kenji's missions, got a 2 next to it. And then once you finish Asuka's Payday for Rei, then you unlock Rei's missions. Okay, and then Two-Face Tanner here has a 3 next to it. All right, let's keep going. Completing the first 3 Ray missions, ending with Evidence Dash, unlocks Donald Love's missions. And the second Donald Love mission is Waka Gashira Wipeout, where you turn away from the Asuka and Kenji and the Yakuza gang. And so once you complete Waka Gashira Wipeout, Asuka and Kenji will both be pretty darn angry at you, and Kenji's missions will be totally closed from that point. And so you'll note that in order to get down to this Waka Gashira Wipeout, you didn't have to do a single Kenji mission. You had to do Liberator, which came from doing some Rei missions, which came from doing some Asuka missions, but the Kenji missions are totally optional and they're not required in order to complete Waka Gashira Wipeout. So if you do Waka Gashira Wipeout, or I should say as soon as you complete Waka Gashira Wipeout, Kenji's missions disappear entirely, and it's possible you haven't done any of these 5 missions. So before you do Waka Gashira Wipeout, make sure you do all 5 of these missions, otherwise you can lock yourself out from those 5. And then finally, coming down here, let's see. So we keep going. We got some Ray missions. We got some Donald Love missions. Shoreside Vale opens up once you complete a drop in the ocean for Donald Love. And as soon as you complete that, then you can complete Marked Man and Grand Theft Auto and Uzi Money. So finishing Drop in the Ocean unlocks the final Ray mission. Marked Man is in the Ray chain, but is not available until you complete Drop in the Ocean. And completing Drop in the Ocean also unlocks the final set of phone missions. There's 5 of them given to you by D-Ice over in Shoreside Vale. Okay, over in Wichita Gardens, I should say, in Shoreside Vale. And then Grand Theft Auto, number 3 here, once you complete that one, then Two-Face Tanner is locked forever. And that's, again, the final Asuka mission. And it's not required to do Two-Face Tanner in order to progress the story by unlocking the Ray missions. So again, it's dangling off the tree, and you want to make sure that before you complete Grand Theft Auto, you complete Two-Face Tanner. Otherwise, you will lock yourself out of that mission and 100% completion possibility. So all told, there are 10 missions that you can lock yourself out of, 10 out of 73. 4 up here in the Mafia chains. And then you could lock yourself out of all 5 of Kenji's missions, and then finally Two-Face Tanner, the last Asuka mission. So you got to be careful with the order in which you complete these missions if you really want to get 100%. So this is the end of the mission tree. We've got Donald Love's got this collection of missions here, and then once you finish Grand Theft Auto, then you can come over here and do Asuka missions. But again, you can't go back and do Two-Face Tanner. So these Asuka missions become available, and once you complete Ransom, then you have access to the final mission in the game, the lone mission that begins in Shoreside Vale. And that's the Catalina mission exchange. And then outro is just the winning cutscene. So that is the complete look at the mission tree. And again, I will link this webpage in the description below. Here's the text explaining the order in which you got to make sure you do things. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about percentage stuff again. So I did a whole video on this, so we're not going to go into the weeds like we did before. But in that video, I counted up all of the objective points that I had earned, and I came up with 82 things that I had done that earned objective points. And I took 82 and I divided by the 154 objective point total, and I got 53% and change. And so I was expecting that my in-game percentage would be 53% and change. But I was quite surprised to discover that it isn't 53% and change, but actually my in-game percentage is 54%. Which is weird because I did all of the arithmetic and I double checked my work and I did the division again, 82 divided by 154, and I kept getting 53% and change, which should get rounded down. Doesn't matter what the change is. 52.9% would get rounded down to, 53.9% would get rounded down to 53%. So why am I at 54%? Well, I happened to be looking through the forum, and I went all the way back through like all 8 pages of forum notes in order to just look for glitches and bugs and things that kind of might give me ideas for stuff to demonstrate in this series. And I found this post from 2005 from Demarest. So here I am 17 years, 18, 17 and a half years late to the party, almost 18 years late. But Demarest shared with the community that there is a bug associated with doing paramedic. So if you recall, when you get a reward from a side mission, you get an objective point. And so, for example, in Taxi Driver, when you complete your 100th fare, you are awarded the Borg 9, and that triggers you getting one more objective point added to your total. But that's the only reward for Taxi. So none of the other fares count, only the one that gives you the reward. So Paramedic has 3 rewards associated: the health pickup at your safe house, the adrenaline pickup at your safe house, and infinite sprint. So, assuming that you do no paramedic at all, and then you do 12 levels of paramedic, you successfully complete paramedic your first time through, you'll get a point when the health pickup announcement shows up on the beeper. You'll get another objective point at the end of the mission because the adrenaline is given to you, and you'll get another objective point at the end of the mission because infinite sprint is given to you. So 3 objective points in all. And what Demarest pointed out is that the game does not check to see if you've already been rewarded with infinite run before. So what does that mean to us? It means that if you do paramedic a second time and you complete 12 levels again, then you get another objective point. Even though you already had infinite sprint, the game just wasn't coded correctly at this one spot. The game didn't check to make sure you hadn't already gotten the objective point for infinite sprint, which means that every time you do 12 levels of paramedic, you get an objective point. And so some of you maybe understand what happened in my save file, but in my save file, just to be thorough, if you recall, I did paramedic in Portland and I got my 3 objective points because that was the first time I did paramedic. And then just to be really thorough, I did paramedic in Staunton, unknowingly getting another objective point. As soon as I finished level 12 there, I was given another objective point. And then I did paramedic one more time in Shoreside Vale. We shall not speak of that attempt, but it worked eventually after like 10 hours. And I got another objective point, hardest earned objective point I've ever gotten in my life in GTA 3. And so I actually don't have 82 objective points going through the, this sort of standard calculation. I have 84 because I did paramedic 3 times. So the first time I did paramedic, I got all 3 points as expected. And then I got a 4th point and then a 5th point. And so I don't have 82, I actually have 84. And when I do 84 divided by 154, indeed I get 54% and change. So that explains why I'm at 54% instead of 53%. Okay, so one other thing before we wrap up here, Demarest points out that that you can take advantage of this bug if you happen to be sitting at like 99% or something like that, and the only thing left to do is Two-Face Tanner, but it isn't available. The mission is sealed. Well, you could go do paramedic, and if you complete 12 levels of paramedic, you will get the objective point. You will get an objective point, and it can replace the one that you missed out on with Two-Face Tanner. So if you find yourself in this place where you have locked yourself out, unfortunately, of one or more missions, you still could get 100%. You just have to do 12 levels of paramedic for each mission that you locked yourself out of. Also, I'll point out that doing paramedic very late in the game means that the mafia is obviously mad at you, and so it might be very challenging on any island. It could be very challenging because you'll have gangs shooting at you. One thing you could do if you wanted is to use 2 glitches that we've described in previous videos to do paramedic in an ambulance that has no collision detection. And so I don't mean one that's damage proof. I mean literally the one that can drive through vehicles and buildings and stuff, because then bullets that hit your ambulance won't actually do any damage. So could do that to make it more realistic, maybe to do paramedic while the gangs are shooting at you at the end of the game. And then final thing here, Demarest points out that you can actually get 100% completion in the game after you finish Luigi's Girls, which is the only story mission that we finished in this game, and then just do a ton of paramedic. He says 153 times because you get 1 point for finishing Luigi's Girls, and you need 154 points to get 100% completion in the game. So 153 times going through paramedic. Okay, so this is actually not quite true. I don't think I'm going to reach out to Damaris and say, hey, 18 years ago, you were slightly wrong on a number. But the first time you do paramedic, you actually get 3 points, not just the one. And so you do Luigi's Girls for 1 point. You do paramedic once for 3 points. That brings you to 4 points. And then you have to do paramedic 150 more times to bring you to 154. So actually, shouldn't be 153, only 151 times through paramedic. That's it. That's all it takes. Okay, so I think we are good to go. And like I said, the next thing we are going to do in this video series is our first story mission since the first video in the series. And that's going to be the next Luigi mission. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you real soon.